They are among multiple states where it has been all you can eat, free transmission at in the wild rates for the virus for all of these weeks, because these are the kinds of governors who think the White House is in charge. And if the White House isn't telling them what to do, then maybe that means they should do nothing. Literally, there are 2,100 plus confirmed cases in Missouri. And the governor there has just been letting it spread unabated for now, planning to maybe work on it later. The new stay-at-home order just put into effect today, or just announced today in Missouri, isn't going to go into effect until Monday. So even as the Missouri governor finally concedes, okay, maybe I'll do something, still you can enjoy a full weekend of Missouri's epidemic seeding itself as widely as possible, thus ensuring the number of infected people in Missouri will be as high as possible, thus ensuring the number of ill people in Missouri will be as high as possible, as fast as possible, with as many of them sick simultaneously as you could possibly muster as a public policy matter. Having some stay-at-home orders in some places, in some states, and having it still be do whatever you want in other states is insane. It was insane from the beginning. It's absolutely insane this far into it. We have the worst coronavirus outbreak in the world. We've already got more than 7,000 dead Americans. We don't have a treatment. We don't have a vaccine. We don't have a cure. It's going to be a long time before we have any of those things. We don't really even have testing in this country on any widespread basis. The only thing we've got to try to stop this virus is to keep people from giving it to each other, to reduce the numbers of people who get infected, who get sick all at once so that our healthcare systems don't collapse. That's all we've got. We've already got the biggest epidemic on earth, more than 7,000 people dead. And still, millions of Americans live in places where there aren't stay-at-home orders. It is insane that there remains no federal policy in this regard. Having a patchwork policy here, having some states where it's stay-at-home and some places where it's not, it's like having a pool where there's one section in the pool where it's okay to pee. It's like having an airplane where there's one section where it's okay to smoke, but everything else you're going to call non-smoking, despite what all those people are going to smell like when they get off that plane. I mean, Dr. Fauci at least is saying, let's have a national stay-at-home order. Why don't we have one yet? The Surgeon General is going on the Today Show and saying, I think we should have a national stay-at-home order. Can I just tell people that we do, even if we don't? I mean, why is that alone not just fixed tonight? It would take 10 words at the podium. You could save thousands of lives. A Cat 4 hurricane hitting a major American city and blowing out the levees and flooding the whole darn thing and killing 2,000 people while Americans climbed onto the rooftops to beg for help. Yeah, that's a national disaster. And so, yeah, we can all see, and we could see at the time, that the national government, the federal government, should be running the response. And the George W. Bush administration tried to play it off like it wasn't their problem. Ultimately, they figured it out, and they put somebody in charge who could handle the operational concerns of that disaster, who could handle the logistics. But they didn't figure it out quickly enough. They didn't figure out quickly enough to save 2,000 Americans, and not quickly enough to consign the George W. Bush presidency to worst of lists for the rest of American history. They were late enough that they consigned him to that. But this failure, this national disaster, again, has already cost more than triple the deaths of Katrina. It'll cost 100 times the deaths of Katrina by this summer, on the White House's own estimates, if they don't learn that belated lesson now. And I'm not complaining about it because I enjoy saying things about the president doing poorly. Boy, do I wish the president was doing better. Mr. President, there are things that only you can do here. But the most important thing that you can do is put somebody in charge. You know, you'll love it, because whoever you pick, you can blame that person at the end, when there are still 100,000 or 200,000 dead Americans piled up in the nation's funeral homes and crematoria and cemeteries. Pick somebody you're looking forward to scapegoating and blaming and saying it was all their fault from the beginning. I think that we could take that as a country, if putting somebody in charge who is actually in charge might also mean that we'll keep the numbers that low. Because as long as we don't have a federal response that is being run by anyone, there's no guarantee that the numbers will stay within that massive range that you're talking about. Sky's the limit in terms of what it could be. I mean, just back and look at what George W. Bush did belatedly with Army General Russell Honore. Put an overall command and control officer in place who can, number one, announce on your authority binding national policy and firm national guidance to governors and mayors. Number two, who can federalize on your authority all needed supplies and resources and facilities needed to test, trace, isolate, triage, treat, and ultimately bury coronavirus victims. Three, pick somebody who can oversee, on your authority, a massive production, procurement, purchasing, maintenance, allocation, distribution, and redistribution system for those critical resources. It's going to be a huge effort. You may want to get your son-in-law out of the way here. You may want to create a disaster response command within the U.S. military to do this, which would be a huge deal. That said, if you are uncomfortable with being the commander-in-chief of such an effort, because you don't want to be that clearly responsible for it when you ultimately want to blame the person you put in charge, then pick something else to call it and don't make it a combatant command. But you are going to need to mobilize the defense transportation system to move critical resources around this country. And you're going to actually have to aggressively use and not just cite the Defense Production Act. And you're going to have someone very good, moving very quickly to address the death trap conditions that exist right now in senior and congregate living facilities of all kinds, including nursing homes and long-term care facilities and veterans' homes, and yes, jails and prisons. You are going to need to well and truly let an experienced operations manager take the lead and fix this now. It is too late already, but now is better than never. Now is better than next week. Yesterday would have been better than today, but we'll take what we can get. We can't call it too late. We have to believe that we can still course correct to save some lives. Whatever you need to tell yourself to do it, just do it.
Team, subscribe for more of these type of videos.